Well, hello, everyone. I hope you are enjoying your day so far. Welcome to your third session. My name is Madeline Carr-Spatson, and I am the Research and Policy Director at the Louisiana Policy Institute for Children. Before we get started, here are a few quick housekeeping items. You can chat with our speaker and myself using the chat box feature. If you're having tech problems, feel free to use the chat feature to let us know. We do have a tech team with us. So if you have any issues, just give us a shout. We're happy to help. If you have any questions, please type them in the Q&A box. We will have time for Q&A at the end, so don't hesitate to add your questions as we go along. And without further ado, let's get to our last session before the lunchtime panel. With us today, we have Ms. Carol Alexander Lewis. She has more than 20 years of experience in the field of education. Her teaching, program development, school site administration, and district level administration experience ranges from preschool to college. She has served as an adjunct professor at Dillard University and Delgado Community College. Ms. Lewis also has served as a consultant, assistant director, and director of the Delgado Community College Child Development Center. Prior to her tenure in higher education, Ms. Lewis previously served as a pre-K to 12th grade district level administrator of federal and consolidated programs, including Title I, Title II, Title IV, and Safe, Drug, and Free Schools. Ms. Lewis has served as executive director of Parents for Public Schools of Greater New Orleans as well. She has also served as director of TANF grants and the U.S. Department of Education mentorship grants. As a consultant and public speaker, Ms. Lewis has conducted numerous workshops and in-service trainings. Since 2005, Ms. Lewis has served as the publisher of Modern Parents magazine. The publication serves the continental United States, and Ms. Lewis was selected as a partner by the United States Department of Education on workshops, conferences, and the Parent Power Forums. Ms. Lewis holds a bachelor's degree in education from Dillard University, a master's degree in education administration and supervision from Xavier University, and a degree in pre-K to 12th grade educational leadership, and is scheduled to receive a PhD in higher education with a focus in early childhood in 2026. It's very exciting. As a primary grant writer, Ms. Lewis has served as a consultant for Grambling State University and was instrumental in helping the university to receive grant funding from Ascend at the Aspen Institute and CCAMPIS from the U.S. Department of Education. Ms. Lewis is now the administrator of the new Grambling State University Child Development Center. With us today, we also have Dr. Susan Mayo, and she makes others' dreams come true through her innovative and strategic training techniques using person, purpose, and persistence as her core values. Known around the world as a dot connector, Dr. Mayo brings to bear a distinguished career in public service, entrepreneurship, economic and community development, and family child advocacy since 1979. She works closely with policy and decision makers, educators, and business leaders across the country and abroad on the issues of diversity, inclusion, and social advancement. Dr. Mayo is currently a lecturer at Grambling State University in the Department of Family and Consumer Sciences and has been teaching online courses since 2005. Dr. Mayo is an educator, a researcher, an author, an entrepreneur and fundraiser, a trainer, a strategist, an association manager, and a community planner. Dr. Mayo received her PhD from Kansas State University in Family Studies and Human Development, a master's from the University of the District of Columbia in Urban and Regional Planning, and a bachelor's with honors from Grambling State University in Political Science and Criminal Justice, respectively. She has received an honorary doctorate of divinity in community and educational relations from Bethesda Biblical College in Metairie, Louisiana, and she is on several national, regional, and local community boards. Her philosophy on life is to always be a transformational leader with a servant spirit. Finally, Mr. Terry Matthews is unavailable to join us today, but we would like to acknowledge his contribution to this presentation and to this work. Terry Matthews is known throughout the state of Louisiana and the nation as a purpose-driven, strong leader with commitment and passion for students, education, research, and the teaching profession. His professional goal and desire are to help others make a positive contribution to society by teaching them and touching their lives through education. Mr. Matthews is currently serving as the interim coordinator for the Department of Family and Consumer Sciences at Grambling State University, where he leads the department faculty and students in the 10 areas of specialization in the discipline. He received a Master's of Education from the University of Louisiana at Monroe in in Administration and Supervision. His Bachelor's of Science degree also from the University of Louisiana at Monroe in Child Development, and his postgraduate studies in Child Development and Family Relations at Grambling State University. A noted scholar and researcher, Mr. Matthews values helping to build great students, each architecturally unique and foundationally secure. He is a member of various professional and civic organizations and serves on various statewide and national organizations. One of his most rewarding outcomes of his career path and profession as an educator and as an administrator is that he makes a difference in his students' lives, but also by helping change the lives of others. We are so pleased to have such distinguished guests with us for our symposium. Thank you for being here, and I will kick it over to you now.
Thank you, Ms. Batson, Dr. Batson. We appreciate that. And we thank the Louisiana Policy Institute, as well as the Children's Coalition and Louisiana Tech for inviting us to be a part of this wonderful symposium, the inaugural symposium today for early childhood. I am Dr. Mayo. I bring you greetings from Mr. Matthews. As Dr. Batson said, he could not be with us. All of the students, faculty, alumni, and the Graham fam that we say at Grambling State University. We can't be teaching about being a family if we're not about the family. And of course, my colleague, Ms. Carol Alexander Lewis, who will take us on a flight today about early childhood, as well as student parents at Grambling State University from the lens of our students themselves. We're excited to be a part of this because we'd like to share with you today a brief snapshot of what's been going on at Grambling for the last 5 years in anticipation of opening our Child Care Center, which was the ultimate for those of you that are Louisianans and those that are across the country watching this great symposium, and maybe even abroad, our colleagues across the world. You may know that Grambling State University was proud to be a recipient of the Department of Ed grant to reopen our Child Care Center. Ms. Carol Alexander will talk about that a little later. The first thing I'd like to share with you on our slide is a little history about Grambling State University. And the first is that our university was founded in 1901 by farmers. The university was a college then, the Negro Normal Institute, and we asked that we continue the legacy of those that were educated in our community to be able to go into this realm of helping student parents today. So the legacy of the university is grounded in empowering students to become the greatest citizens that they can in and outside of the classroom. If you could share the screen, I would certainly appreciate that right now if we can go through the slides. The second thing I'd like to share with you today is that our department was founded by our founder's wife. She was the first department chair of the old home economics department. And that may not seem important today because we're talking about student parents, but anybody that knows anything about family and consumer sciences, that's the old home economics. In the late 1970s and 80s, the new home economics department became a discipline that expands across 10 different areas. It used to be sewing, cooking, and taking care of the children, as well as the finances for the department. So now we've expanded to 10 areas, which include child development, early childhood education, taking care of the family, which is the finances, which used to be financial literacy and planning. Now it's consumer sciences. We take care of the housing, we take care of the food, we take care of the clothing, and then an array of other areas. So when a person comes to Grambling State University and majors in our department, they get a wealth of information and they also become great citizens for the world. If we could share the screen, please, for slide number 2. I can't see it, so I'm going to continue to talk, if you will, if our tech team can help us. So if you look at our university, there are approximately 5,200 students who are in our university on average this academic year. Our department is a smaller department, but it's vast and integrating and engaging because the students cross a number of disciplines who come interested in our field of early childhood. Our department is grounded in early childhood education with an emphasis in early literacy. And so what happens is when we did not have our child care center open since 2010, our university president, who was then President Gallo, who is now, of course, our president of the UL system, said, I want the child care center open. Can you all help me? Of course, Mr. Matthews and our former chair, Dr. Glenda Island, had been working fiercely with the other faculty when I arrived back home after being an alum away for 40 years. The thrust was we got to get this child care center open. So we did that. We went on a 4 to 5 year plan. We looked at it. We aggressively looked at it. We analyzed it, and we were kind enough to meet Miss Carol Alexander, who helped us in applying for the C Campus grant, of which we were successful in doing so. We're excited about that. That may not mean a lot to those of you on the call, but when you've been closed for 10 years and you see students who are struggling, who are trying to make the best of their family life. They're trying to do the best for their own families as well as the children of which they are parents, but they're also trying to matriculate in their education. And so what happens is they have challenges, financial challenges, emotional challenges. They've got to do their work. Many of our students, if not all of them, have at least one job, and I have been fortunate to teach in a department where I've been teaching the mother, the child, the mother, and the grandmother or grandfather trying to get their education. So the vision was to reopen the nursery school, which was the GSU Nursery School. We don't use nursery school anymore, and now it's known as the GSU Child Development Center. This center serves as a support for student parents, along with a specific emphasis on early childhood services, student parents, and we use the 2-gen approach. I'm researching now the 3-gen approach, and our students are looking at it in our research course to look at the 3-gen approach, which includes the child, the parent, student parent, and the community. And in some instances, the community can be broad enough to even include grandparents, surrogate parents, and the community at large. So we're excited to go into this area as we look to 2025 and how this will look to our student parents in the future. Next, I'd like to introduce you to a little bit, next slide, please, on our research. The Grambling State University family has looked basically at student parents on campus. And we were kind enough to be able to look at the students through the lens of the student and then to look back into the founding of our institution and look at how we've changed as an institution, but how in some instances we've never changed. Our theme is, and many of you know this, Grambling State University is a place where everybody is somebody. So when you're talking about the Graham fam, you may not know what that means, but let me tell you what it means. It means that in our community, when you come to visit Grambling, the town of Grambling, and Grambling State University, you are grounded in looking at the broad spectrum of the undergraduate and graduate programs with an emphasis of the founding principle of educational opportunity and equality. And by that, the community embraces you. The community is wide, broad, and global because the Graham fam members, alumni, faculty, students, community members, and those that are invested in the success of our students, we take that very seriously. And that's our research rationale. It is what we do in the classroom, and it is certainly what we do in all of our activities and other events across the campus. Next, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about our background. Our historical significance is very important, but also the population of our students makes us more abreast, more vigorous, and as well equipped to look at the broad spectrum of what that looks like. The poverty rate nationally is 11.8%. In the town of Grambling and across our state, it's 18.6%. I'm a researcher, I'm a social scientist, as well as Ms. Ms. Lewis and Mr. Matthews. So we looked at it broadly to look at the population and go down into the grasp of our students. And that's how we were able to address our parental issues, look at significant changes, and then the trend of looking at not just non-traditional age students, but the complexity and the commonality that remains the same for getting a quality education while providing quality childcare while our students attend school and matriculate, because the bottom line is we want them to graduate successfully in 4 years from Grambling State University. Next, I'd like to talk a little bit about the student parents on campus. There is a significant shortage of affordable quality childcare in our community. Our community is broad. It's not just Grambling State University, but there is the town, there's a vicinity of the areas that surround Grambling, the town of Grambling, and our neighboring communities, Simsboro, Arcadia, Ruston, Shudron, Jonesboro, Winnsboro, even Shreveport and Monroe are significantly impacted by what happens at Grambling State University. We are the largest employer in Lincoln Parish, along with Louisiana Tech. What that means is, with the shortage of childcare and then looking at affordable childcare, the need for the childcare center was not just in terms of accessibility, but we also looked at the strength of the student parents. We looked and worked with all of our partners like the Children's Coalition data, like the Annie Casey studies, the Pew Foundation, the state of Louisiana, and all of the other national and international licensed agencies and nonprofits to look at childcare as a sense of service, not only to the infants and the toddlers, but also to the families and the vicinity of Grambling State University. We found out through our research that we had 744 student parents in our population from 2022. That data was collected through FAFSA, and most of you that are on this call probably in the state of Louisiana may not know this. We found out by mistake. I could not believe, having worked in the federal government for 30 years, that the state of Louisiana did not secure the data for knowing who the student parents are and if these student parents have children. So that was a new one for us. That's on our to-do list, to make it that every university in the state of Louisiana would in fact begin to start collecting this data. I challenge you on this phone, those of you that are in higher education and in K through 12, to be able to know the student population in your universities and thus in our high schools of those individuals. The numbers are important. How many of them have children? That's very important for us, not just on a funding side, but a policy side, which I know the Louisiana Policy Institute will be looking at and has looked at in the past. It's important for our legislators and our decision makers, of which are in special session this week. It is important for our audiences, our alumni, our community leaders, our clergy, and the nonprofits that serve an array of people across the country. Now I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Carol Lewis, who will talk about what it is we have been doing and how great things are going to continue to be for the children and for the student parents at our institution.
All right, so thank you very much, Dr. Mayo. And so I'd like to thank Dr. Mayo for her passion. And Dr. Mayo is actually she's been very instrumental in this acquisition and having the Child Care Center to receive this funding. Dr. Mayo actually reached out and expressed a desire by her president at the time, Dr. Rick Gallo. They actually had a very strong desire to service a specific audience of the university. And that audience that was their student parent audience. Of course, as Dr. Mayo has mentioned, the Child Development Center existed in a different form. It existed as a nursery school prior to our acquisition of the C Campus grant. The work that the university as a whole contributed to for the proposal was phenomenal. As a grant writer, I could not have asked for a more supportive team. This university expressed a strong desire for that audience. They provided the data that was necessary to compile a very competitive proposal. And as a result, we presented a proposal to the U.S. Department of Education for the C Campus grant that received a perfect score, which was it's fairly unheard of in the field of grant writing. And so I attribute that to the support of the university as a whole. So their work and their passion for this audience did not end there. They're still as passionate and supportive of this work now that we've been able to open the Child Care Center. And everyone has really gathered around and supported this edifice. And I think that's really the secret sauce. Everyone, every department has bought into this center as a means for helping a specific audience achieve upward mobility. And so I can't speak enough about the support of the new president, Dr. Lamel, who has came in and has picked up that mantle and has continued that unprecedented support of this specific audience of student parents. And what's so important about this work is that this audience, the student parent audience, as Dr. Mayo has mentioned, is generally not captured through most data. So Grambling State University was not the only university that did not track this data. Nationally, this data is not captured readily. One of the only means of acquiring this information is generally through FAFSA records. And so once we are able to hone in on that audience, then we were able to focus on their needs, their specific needs, and develop resources that would service those needs and provide not only our internal support, but external support as well. I'm gonna bring us through our presentation here. So I'd like to share some resources that have also served as foundational supports for the work that we're doing with student parents. And you'll see many of them listed here. One of the most instrumental was our student parent task force that allowed us to really gather the voices and the thoughts of those student parents, the faculty, as well as our community. And it helped us to develop the wraparound supports that we are focusing on providing for the students. Parenting workshops for those student parents is very important, and that is focused on the needs that those student parents are expressing to us, areas that they would like more information about as it relates to parenting and then just being a student parent in general. We are grateful to have things like the food bank and closed closets that are accessible to our students. But those offices that provide documented support, consistent support, are primarily our Office of Student Affairs, Office of Student Support Services, our counseling center, of course, the Office of Admissions, Housing and Financial Aid, especially the Office of Financial Aid, who always helps us keep a record of those student parents so we know who they are, when they're entering, and how we can best service them. So some of the outputs that we are focused on here is achieving a higher, more consistent class attendance rate with our student parents and helping them along that road to matriculation. Our center is focused highly on retention. That is the main mission and focus of the center, is to help those students matriculate throughout their time with us, with us serving students as early as freshmen, in addition to students who are seniors. Us really being a consistent presence in their lives, they're telling us is something that is very valuable to them. And we're very protective of that relationship that we have with them, and we're grateful to be able to provide this service for them. We really focus on increasing awareness, not only of the student parents' needs within our department, but also to express those needs and barriers with the faculty and staff at large, so that they're able to think about how they can support student parents in their classrooms. So that's something that is very exciting to see, how the faculty is excited about ways that they can focus on helping those student parents. Support for our student parents is actually, in addition to our faculty and staff, contributed to by our community at large. We have churches and nonprofit organizations in the vicinity who are willing and ready to help us in any way that they can. And the alumni is always standing right in the wings for any assistance that we need. So we have a few short-term and long-term goals that we're focused on. For our short-term goals, development of our parent hub on campus is what we're focused on now. And in that hub, we will provide additional resources for parents. We'll bring in outside resources for the parents to have access to here. We'll look at implementing a series of digital and print resources for the student parents, and developing a space here within the Child Development Center that'll serve as the main hub for our institutional hubs that we'll implement on campus. And development of an informational portal on our university website is very important to us, because that's where we're going to highlight the Child Care Center, the parents, the student parent resources that are available to them, and just the general good news that is happening with and around our student parents. Long term, we are looking at adding external partnerships to focus on the 2 and now 3 generation approach that Dr. Mayo spoke of. We are pursuing additional external funding for support for our student parents, and facilitating professional development trainings for our student parents. But we're so grateful to have campus funding, which actually exists as a primary resource for us, so that it covers all of the needs that the university would incur with providing such a service. We're grateful that this grant funding will cover all of those needs for us. So we're very happy to share on the screen some resources or references here that we've used within our work regarding our student parents. And I'm gonna bring it back over to Dr. Mayo.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis. We appreciate it, and we thank you for joining the Graham fam. We took a snapshot of doing what you had done across the world and said, can you bring it to Grambling? And we were very successful. And our students, parents, and alumni and administrators, thank you for that. I'd like to open it up, if I could, Ms. Batson, Dr. Batson, and turn it over to you. We're certainly open to answer any questions of our audience. We're here for you, and we're just glad to be a part of this today.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with everyone, and really just giving so much attention to your student parents. That is a population that, as you shared, isn't always as focused on as much as it should be, even though they make up a large population of our higher ed institutions. So thank you so much for sharing that. For anyone who's participating, now is a great time to put your questions either in the chat or in the Q&A feature. We got some experts here, so ask away.
If we don't have any in the chat, this might spark some interest. I know I used to sit in workshops, didn't quite know what they were talking about 20 years ago when they talked about the student parents, but now I know it and I'm researching it, saying it. So I'd like to just tell the audience, often when this kind of work comes to the forefront, I was privileged to be in the federal government when the AIDS epidemic, and I say fortunate, when the cancer and the AIDS epidemic was in PSTD were not really talked about. The government was studying it, the health professions were looking at it, but we really didn't know what to do with it. And I equate it to the civil rights movement. It's a movement more so than it is a program, if you will. I think Ms. Lewis will agree with me on that. But when you're talking about a population of students that are pretty much silenced, because they come to school, they do what they have to do, and they go home because they have parenting requirements and families and children and homework and work and everything else that all of us as I said life happens. That's what I tell the students often when they appear in my room and they have this look like I really need some help. And so I would like to encourage each one of us on the call and at the conference to just this next year sort of look at your students in a way that they don't have to say anything. Their body language really will tell us a story. The second thing is that sometimes you will know if a student is in, and I don't call it crisis anymore. I used to use crisis in the 90s and early 2000s. I just say they're in transition. And they are often juggling, as we all do. We multitask. That's something they teach us in nursery school and kindergarten, how to learn to work in groups. But when you're faced with that and you're an adult and you're responsible for someone else, we need to begin to, as institutions, in my opinion, and there's research on this, that the institution requires us to be not just educators in the classroom, but also to educate outside of the classroom, which sometimes has a larger impact and effect on a student's success than it does. If we do the 3 M's, I call it mentoring, motivation, and matriculation, retention won't be as large of an issue as it is for all of the 3,000 institutions in the United States and those across the world, as I've been studying this work, not just in the United States, but in other countries as well, third countries as well-developed countries in the, Germany, Europe, Spain. We all have the same issues. Same thing in India, Africa, and the far west. So if we were to look at our students as a population that really often needs more support in some instances than our traditional 17-year-olds to 24, and really begin to wrap our arms around that and have them have a voice in the operations and the administration of our institutions of higher education, I think we will see our retention rates grow up. Often a student parent comes with a seriousness in mind. So they really are focused on what they've got to do. They may not have all of the expertise in technology and now AI that the rest of the students have had because they've been working and raising their families while others have just been coming into it in the actual high school K through 12, but they are ready to learn. And in many instances, they are well versed in the classroom and are very vocal and can bring their expertise in management and program management and house management, if you will, to the classroom. So that's my little challenge for the day for all of us, including myself. I have to reset myself each semester and say, okay, I have a commitment for the next 20 years to touch somebody in my midst, a student that I may or may not even know at this point.
Yeah, thank you for that insight. And I think an important aspect of the work that y'all are doing is that it's not just providing childcare. It's
Yeah.
really making sure that the whole human, the whole person is taken care of. And that just when we look at the outputs that you've seen of like just higher attendance, that's not just a one factor output. There's all the other services you gave, the mental health consultants, things like that, really has an impact on a student. A lot of us were probably students at one point, and can you only imagine going through that, and then having a little one that you're also trying to care for on top of all that. So really getting at the whole person and the program, that work that you're doing, that posture is just so important, and really cool, I think, for other institutions as they look to think of how to better support their parents, students, thinking about the whole student in mind, is going to be a really important process and all that. What do you think, for this is a question for both of you, for people who are here and they're super interested in the work that you're doing, but they're not directly tied to a university or higher ed institution, what can they do? Maybe our business leaders, advocates, researchers, or just community leaders, what can they do to better help their local higher ed students?
I'll go first if I may, and then I'll turn it over to Ms. Carroll. She's more of an expert in this area than I am. But I'm sort of I'm an Obama kid, if you will. I didn't really appreciate community work until I heard Mr. President Obama say what he had done before he became a senator. So I was doing that work and didn't have a title for it, but I was doing it after my job. And so I used those skills, and I'm glad you said whether they're in higher ed or not. I came in to higher ed after owning my business for 20, 30 years and in the federal government for 30. So I'm 60-ish, if you will, closer to 70. And yet I bring that community involvement to the classroom and outside the classroom. So it doesn't matter to me if it's a football player who has twins, or if it's a non-traditional student that's 70 who's helping their grandparent, or if it's an older person like myself returning to school, or a 17-year-old who just had a baby. And Ms. Carroll can address this in just a moment. It doesn't matter in your community. We're an HBCU, so we're grounded in the community work, and the institution be a part of the community, as I mentioned earlier. But I think it's important that the community as a whole look at this population of students, and I think there's some simple things you can do. One, you can reach out to your community organizations and say, are we or should we be doing some work with another group of students that might need us? And I'll share with you briefly, I had a student 2 weeks ago who a faculty member called and said, I have a student who's homeless. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Do I call the Office of Student Conduct? Do I call the Office of Student Support Services? Do I call the, New Rocky Valley Baptist Church minister, or the Department of Housing? And the student was told there's no homelessness, or people who don't have homes in North Louisiana, particularly in Lincoln Parish. And I sort of laughed, as I always do, because I know good and well we have people who are homeless, because I get the calls and used to get them for the last 7 years that I've been in Grambling and returned to my hometown and to my alma mater. I know they're homeless people because they're underneath the bridge, and sometimes they're out on Interstate 20 or at the gas station looking for someone to assist them, and sometimes they have children. So each one of us can do something that will help the good of the cause for this population of students. They are not always female. I think sometimes we think that, it's the mother, maybe she can't on hard times, but I'm telling you, we got some young men who are fathers who need help too. And many of them are high profile. I'm not going to say they're all athletes or they're all in the band or they're on the rowing team or the golf team. I will just say we have a mixture of students who fall in the category of student parents in each one of our institutions in our state and across the United States. What can you do? One, you can always give a child a pair of socks. You can go to the dollar store and buy some diapers or some wet ones or some blankets or whatever else Miss Carol can tell us today. The other piece of it is you can go to your nonprofit groups and say, let's call the institution and see what we can do, because every school is different. Every child care center is different. Every student is different. So those are some of the basic things on the ground that you can do. And then the other piece is some of us just need to reach and look across the aisle at church or at the Girl Scout meeting or at the soccer team. There's somebody in your community that you can help. Believe it or not, these students are in our midst every day. And if we can help them, we've done some of the work that we were put on this earth to do.
Mhm.
Miss Carol, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. All right. In the interest of time, I will say that Dr. Mayo has covered just about almost, the lion's share of ways that the community could reach out and help us with. Yeah, I think in the interest of time, I won't prolong our time, but I would just like to echo Dr. Mayo's sentiments. It doesn't take um, a magnanimous effort. This audience is so appreciative of any help and any assistance, and just being acknowledged as an audience. They're the most grateful group of students for any type of assistance and attention that I've run across. And so any type of assistance or any type of outreach, they really they'd be very grateful for. And so, I want to just echo Dr. Mayo's sentiments there.
Well, thank you both. Oh, did you want to say one more thing, Dr. Mayo? You are muted if you're trying to share.
I'm sorry, Miss Carol did spark one thing I wanted to add. You may remember walking into Walmart and seeing the angel tree, right? Every tree with the kids' names on it. So our students came in last week from our Family and Consumer Science Club and said, what are we going to do for Christmas? We usually support the radio station, but we want to support the child care center. So they were, conversing and discussing and coming up with ideas. So we're going to have our own angel tree with the kids' names, the children's names on a balloon display that's going to be in our building. And they want to put the word out to the community that we have these babies, mostly infants at this point, that and some toddlers, that we want to support, like the Angel Tree. Angel Tree is where children who have parents who are in prison, you go to Walmart, you pick the little boot, and then you send Johnny everything that's on the list. So Miss Carol this year is going to give the students the list of all the babies, and then the students have said they are going to do their work, their community work, which is support those individual infants and children that are in there. So that's a basic thing that anybody can do, and of course we'd be happy to have you support us in our efforts, because we just opened. So we're like really in our infant stages, but we're excited about the opportunity. And we know 20 years from now, these students that are babies are going to be graduating from our institutions and then going on to college, and then they will be in a position to give back too.
All right, y'all. Dr. Mayo has put you on assignment. You got to help out them babies this holiday season. And I know sometimes it's hard to know where like your access point is, but really it is just so simple as calling, your local university or community college and saying, hey, what do your student parents need? And how can our business or how can our organization support you during a season that can be difficult for young parents? So, yeah. Yeah, well, thank you so much, everyone, for participating. And then to our speakers, thank you for sharing your expertise and staying dedicated to supporting the whole person, both child and parent. We're really excited to see what happens and how your center flourishes. For everyone listening, your next session actually starts at 11:55, so you have a little break. Feel free to grab your lunch and then join us for our lunchtime panel that is open to everyone. So that can be found back in the Zoom lobby with all the other sessions. There's also a chat feature in the lobby where you can share resources, network as well. So we encourage you to use that. If you have any questions, you're welcome to reach out to us too through that chat and let us know how we can help. But we look forward to seeing you at the lunchtime panel. And yeah, thank you so much for coming. We hope you have a good little break coming up. Take care. Bye.
Thank you. Okay.